the Wizards fired Tommy Shepard, their president, 5 weeks ago, and they don't have an interim. Like they do not have an interim. They have two people in their front office who they have deemed the points of contact, and that's Brett Greenberg, who's the assistant GM, and John Thompson III, the former head coach at Georgetown, who has been in the front office since 2019, and works in player development. And those are the two guys who are the points of contact. If you want to do business with the Wizards, you contact one of those two guys. Now, I know from what I've heard, John Thompson is the guy who's actually been helping with the search for the next GM. People are calling in to express interest in the job, and he's kind of helping with organizing and all that kind of stuff. Brett Greenberg is more on the basketball side of things, but I know there are places that have dealt with like agents or whatever have called John Thompson III to set up pre-draft workouts and all that. But like there are people who I've spoken to, like agents who I've spoken to, who are like, I don't know if I want my guy to be drafted there or not. I don't know who's going to be running the thing. I don't know what the philosophy is going to be. I don't even know who is running the thing in the interim because there isn't an interim, and they kind of just have this group thing going on, but the draft is a month away. And they've had I don't Michael Winger has interviewed reportedly.
Yeah,
Trajan
this is
Langdon is
to
interviewed,
your point.
but
This is
that's it.
this is a massive time for front offices, right? This is such an important month. The combine just happened, obviously the lottery, the discussions behind the scenes. Like I know, cover the Warriors. I know their front office is having like, bi-weekly or like probably 2 to 3 meetings per week right now discussing like, what's the path forward? What does the cap situation look like? What type of guys might we target in free agency? Where might we go in the draft? What other, options are being formulated around the league that maybe we can step in and get somebody. If we needed to trade a contract, where can we trade a contract? Like pretty vital front office business going down. Like this is not August in the NBA calendar. This is not even, from a front office perspective, this is not January, right? This is important times. Now, I would ask you, do you get the sense that they are really just like, hey, we're just interviewing 25 different people. We might just randomly pop up some assistant GM somewhere as some young, cheap GM candidate? Or do you think maybe part of the reason it's taking so long is because they're like big game hunting and like even they're still trying to sniff to see if there's a chance about of a Bob Myers prying him away, even though from my reading, that's not likely to happen, I'll say. But like, where do you think it's going?
I don't think Bob Myers is likely. There are all the rumors about Tim Connolly, who they chased in 2019, who they offered the job to in 2019 and turned them down in 2019 before they eventually placed Tommy Shepard in. But I don't think there's any traction to them yet. There might be down the line, but yet there's not any traction with Tim Connolly. I don't have any evidence that they are big game hunting. I don't. It doesn't mean that they're not doing it. It's just that if they are, I'm not aware of it. I think we can use history to give us some context here, right? So 2019, on April 2nd, the Wizards fire their at the time president, Ernie Grunfeld. They don't hire his replacement until 3.5 months later. And it ended up just being the interim, Tommy Shepard. And they restructured their front office and put people in different places. But they ended up just hiring the interim after a 3.5 month search. It's not like they interviewed a gazillion people for the job over that 3.5 month search. And it's not like they interviewed the finalist candidates, 12 times, and that was their philosophy. They brought in like Troy Weaver, for example, was a finalist who ended up eventually getting the Detroit job a year later. But Troy Weaver was a finalist. They interviewed him, I think it was 3 times. It might have been 4, but I think it was 3. And it was over a period of weeks and weeks and weeks. And there were times where they weren't even communicating with the candidates for weeks at a time. Ted Leonsis, who's the owner of that team, drags his feet on these sorts of things. And so I struggle to see how this is not one of those situations.
Well, if you don't have a GM for 5 weeks, you don't technically have to pay somebody GM money for 5 weeks. They're not.
That's true. That's
true.
true.
Noted.
That's true. I mean, that is true. It's just like, Leonsis is also caught up with so many other things right now too. Like he's trying to buy the Washington Nationals, and he seems to be in a position to where he's really close to doing that. And I know that's taken a lot of his focus throughout this season, but it
What a
is.
time in Washington sports, by the way, with that, and obviously going on with the Commanders. There's an ownership
Yep, totally. And
question.
he already owns the Capitals and the Mystics, and it's just, it is wild to me to see a team going through this time for this long without even an interim. And I get it. If you ask people there, they say that it's just a collaborative thing. Those, the people who are there, the high up people, the VPs and up have known each other for a long time. And I do think they get along well, and I do think they work well together and all that kind of stuff. But it's, I just, if they don't have somebody in place by the draft, what happens if two different people there want to make two different picks? It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be at each other's throats, but it's just like, what's the tiebreaker? How are you actually
The
deciding who to
tiebreaker is
draft? You
Ted
have 5
Leonis. Just
minutes.
pull the string. Maybe he watched a few synergy highlights on one of these guys, and he'll make
Yeah. And the other part of it is a lot of GMs have different strengths, right? Like one guy's strength might be in scouting. Another guy's strength might be in salary cap management. But if your strength is in, say, salary cap management, you might still end up being a great drafter, technically, as a lead exec, because you know who to trust, you know which scouts are good, you're able to identify intelligent people with intelligent thought processes, and you rely on them to help you make smart, informed decisions, and you end up making really good decisions. You might not be the greatest scout in yourself, but that ability to delegate is a real ability for a lead executive. Let's take Michael Winger, for example, who's the GM of the Clippers and who has interviewed for the job and is a candidate for, or I should say has reportedly interviewed for the job. I haven't confirmed that. And is a candidate though for that job. Winger's background is in salary cap management, like I said. He's described to me as one of those people who is just like really smart at picking out who to trust, who to work with. Let's say the Wizards hired him. Might be a great hire, might be a bad hire, who the heck knows. But let's say they hire him and he comes in on June 19th, and it's 5 days or 3 days before the draft. Like, he's not going to know who to trust in that scouting department yet. He's not going to know who his guys are yet. So like, it's going to be, it's weird timing that it's taken so long, but it's also not weird. And I don't know, but there are a lot of openings in the league right now.